Right then, one more signing is what Manchester United need, I think, to have a team that is truly ready to compete. I think the game at weekend against Southampton highlighted numerous issues with the current squad, which one player's not going to change, but I think it would shake itself out over the next couple of months as players fully return, get their pre-season sorted, get into the rhythm of the season and all the rest of that sort of stuff. As much as a disappointment as it was drawing at Southampton at the weekend, there might be something in everyone's home record is probably going to be over-exaggerated from what it was last season, where it was over-exaggerated the other way. There might be something in fitness of the players. There might be a numerous factors that play into this. And one of the beauties of football is that it's as unpredictable as a team sport can be because of how low scoring it is. Because it's so low scoring on average, upsets happen more regularly than they do in other sports. When it's basketball, stuff like that, and people are scoring hundreds of points, the better team's always going to just slowly edge over a worse team. But when it's like literally a goal here and there could literally be the game, football generally brings more upsets, which is why you see the sort of upsets that you see in football and the giant killings that you see in the cups and stuff like that. But anyway, let's talk about, will Manchester United sign someone? Listen, I think that United should be in the mixer for a defensive midfielder or a defensive-minded midfielder. I'm not as tied. I'm certainly not after. I had a conversation with Mike Phelan on the day of the European Championship Cup final, and it seems like Mike and to a lesser extent Ollie are not really of the completely pigeonholing a player as attacking midfielder, defensive midfielder. They say midfielders should be able to do everything. Your Brian Robsons and people like this. And actually, early in his career, Roy Keane wouldn't have been a Kante-style destroyer midfielder. Latterly in his career, he did sort of end up becoming that, but he was a box-to-box midfielder, and he was arguably one of the best in the game, and he played in the midfield too. So if you can do it then, and this is Roy Keane, not a typical everyday run-of-the-mill player, if you can do it then in a 2, you certainly can be the more defensive-minded as a 3 without necessarily being someone that's entirely pigeonholed in that position. And that's what brings me to the 2 options that I see as potential viable options. Saul Niguez, and Ruben Neves. Outside of those 2, I think your options are extremely limited. Now, obviously, one of those has played in the Premier League and one of those hasn't. Both of those are around the same sort of price. And the fact that they're the same sort of price, which to me, on the surface of things, is an affordable price, I think United have to go and get one of these, because we've seen Fred, McTominay, Matic, Jimmy Garner, and Donny van der Beek, and we'll talk about him in a second, are clearly not quite up to the job, or clearly not fancied by Solskjaer to be up to the job, obviously in the case of Donny van der Beek. I think United are still in. I think the conversations that Ollie's having and the response that he has in press conferences to the questioning that he gets about whether he is bringing somebody in, I think there is a desire to bring somebody in. I think that the likelihood of us bringing somebody in 10 days' time or less is on the more unlikely side. I certainly don't think it's 60% or higher chance. I think it's lower than that. So I think United are going to try. But to try, I think they need to clear some off the wage bill. And I think they probably need 2 to go to justify it. The 2 to go, I think, would likely be 2 out of Phil Jones, Tony Marshall, Matic, and Jesse Lingard. I think if you could clear 2 of those from the wage bill, I think they could comfortably justify and, more importantly, afford what's probably going to be somewhere in the region of 200, 250 grand wages coming in per week, plus whatever the transfer fee would end up being for either of those players. That's the issue I think United are currently dealing with and working with, moving those players on. Traditionally, United have struggled doing this. And that's why I think there's not a hesitation, but certainly a hold-up in getting these players off the books and bringing in some revenue that we can reinvest into improving the team at the other end. This might quicken now in the last week of the transfer window, and it needs to quicken, otherwise it's just simply not going to happen. But I think there is a possibility United get one of Neguez or Neves. Neves or Niguez. I think there is a possibility United can get one of those players. I think the personal terms with either would be very straightforward. And even though they would offer slightly different sort of things, I still think both of those guys could do the deep lying playmaker with also a bit of box-to-box about them that they would dovetail in with playing alongside one of Fred or McTominay if required, but also be able to handle it on their own as a single pivot, perhaps with Paul Pogba, perhaps with Bruno ahead of them. And I've spoken on the data as to why I would like either of those players. Another option which people seem to be flooding my inbox with, and honestly, I don't know where this has come from, is playing Lindelof there. Now, for me, Lindelof doesn't offer you the same sort of defensive screen. I think he's shorter than both of those two players. He certainly plays like he's shorter than both of those two players. I don't think he's as good in the air as those two players. I don't think he's as dynamic as either of those two players. And even though he's got a good passing range for a centre-half, I don't think his passing range comes anywhere close to stacking up to that of Saul Niguez or Ruben Neves. McTominay has got a ping on him where he's able to switch the ball at times because he sometimes gets in a little bit of space, has some time, and he's able to put one of those balls over. Now, the difference between someone who's able to do that with a bit of time and a bit of space and Paul Scholes, who would do that while being pressed, is the quality of the player. And ultimately, McTominay and Paul Scholes are not on the same level in terms of quality, but neither is Neves, Niguez to Lindelof in that sense. Lindelof can't come anywhere near those. Being a centre-half, not being pressed, allowed to step into midfield and then ping a ball over the top because you've got time is a lot different to being pressed on the turn and having to get a ball away before someone clatters you. It's a totally different skill set, mindset, and I just don't think that it's a sensible choice. Yes, Lindelof might have played there when he was at Benfica in Portugal. He didn't play there extensively. He also played right back, and I wouldn't be having him at right back either. I think he's a decent centre-half. I don't think he's a great centre-half. And I think he's, probably correctly being replaced by Rafael Varane in the team. There's a weird desire from people to move people around into different positions all the time. I don't understand why. I think he would be very similar to playing Donny van de Beek there, and clearly Ollie's not keen on doing that. And that leads me to the last point, really. What the hell is going on with Donny van de Beek? Maybe this needs a video on its own. Maybe we need to have a look at exactly what Donny van de Beek has done and try and see if we can come up with the reasons why we think Solskjaer's not having him. Because it's gone beyond the point where you go, well, I should blood him in. You should give him a bit of time. He'll get into the team. Now it's gone into the, did he authorise the signing? What's gone on? What is going on? Why is Donny van de Beek not getting games? At all. I think that's a video for another day. But as I said, one more signing. It has to happen. I think the sticky situation, the hold-up of it, is probably shipping one or two off the books. I think Lingard is a very straightforward one, and I would assume Matic would be quite easy as well. I thought it was a tap-in to go to Italy with Jose going to Rome. Maybe not. I thought that was an absolute shoo-in. I think those two would be the ones that I think you could easily get done and get over the line. But, let me know in the comments. Who do you think? Do you agree with me on Niguez or Neves? Let me know in the comments. And hope you're having a good Tuesday. See you in a bit. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.